Hi everyone, this is Leslie Likens with CXPA. We are officially kicking off the 2016 CX Day across the globe, and we are starting with our friends in the Asia Pacific region. So I brought a little celebration with me.
Woo!
Yay! You guys
Yay!
are kicking off Customer Experience Day, which has become a huge thing. This is our 4th annual day to celebrate customer experience, and man, do we have the lineup of events for you. If you haven't checked it out yet, and this is the first time that you're taking a look at anything to do with CX Day, make sure you visit cxday.org. We've got many more panels coming to you today from around the world. We have fantastic local events that are happening around the world as well. I know our friends in New Zealand just celebrated CX Day together at their local event, and we have many more to come as we move our way across the globe. With me today on this very first panel, I'm so excited to welcome Stephanie Davis. Stephanie, you want to say hi to everybody?
Hi, everyone. It's great to see everybody on the webinar. I'm very happy to be here for an opportunity to talk about CX with everybody on this global day. I'm a customer experience manager at Microsoft. I've been there for over 15 years. I manage a team in our corporate customer and partner experience group, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
And right below Stephanie, at least on my screen, I've got Mohammed Latib, who will be your moderator for this panel. Mohammed, are you there?
I am indeed. Welcome and greetings to everybody. I'm delighted to be here and really honored to be the moderator for this very exciting panel, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. I'll come back to introductions in just a moment, but I'm delighted that you've gotten us started already, Leslie.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to quickly go through. The next one down on your video feed is Jane. And again, we'll go to introductions in just a second. And then right below Jane is Amit. And all of your panel today are coming from various parts of the world, and I'm sure Mohammed will go into that as well. But to our friends in Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia, India, Japan, China, and so forth across the Asia Pacific, happy Customer Experience Day, and we look forward to celebrating the rest of the day with you. Mohammed, let's get this panel started.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. And again, welcome to all of you, wherever you might be in different parts of this globe. Many of our panelists, all of our panelists are actually in different parts of the world, and we're delighted to have you here on the theme that I think is extremely important. And if it's not important yet on your radar screen, it's quite pivotal as the world that we know begins to get even flatter than we might have thus far experienced. And so our theme for this kickoff panel conversation is around how do we deploy customer experience across the globe? What are some of the challenges that we would encounter as we cross boundaries, however we define those boundaries? And many of us know that in the world in which we operate today, those boundaries are completely permeable. Leslie got us started with the introductions. Let me just very briefly share with you the structure of our next 30 minutes. We'll go back to having Jane and Amit just say a couple of words about themselves. Stephanie and I have already done so. And then after their introduction, I will get right into the meat of our panel conversation and pose questions and invite our panelists to respond to them. And when we're done with that, we will then invite participants that are here with us today to pose questions. Please type in your question or questions in the window that you see on your screen, and I will filter these to our panelists that are with us today. So on that note, let us begin with Jane to briefly share a little bit about her background with us, and then follow that with Amit, and then we will get into the substance of our conversation. Jane?
Thanks, Mohammed. Good morning from New Zealand. It's just gone lunchtime here. We welcomed CX Day as the first country in the world, and we had a launch of the local CXPA team. So we had 63 very excited CX professionals together for the launch. I have been in business process and customer experience space for about 20 years, and 10 years working internationally. I had an Asia Pacific role for a number of years, and then I moved into a global role based out of London. So CX is pretty much a passion for me, and the cross-cultural challenges I've faced were a pretty steep learning curve to start with, and I'm looking forward to today's discussion. Thanks.
Thank you, Jane. Amit?
Thanks, Jane. Hi, this is Amit Chakrapani. I'm heading the CRM Academy of Asia, which started in India a couple of years back. Before that, I have been into this domain from last 20 years. I conducted a lot of research in this area, and what I found to initiate this company in India, that still the Indian market is very unorganized in the sense of designing the customer strategy and customer experience designing. And I'm realizing that it is exported, and it is the very hot topic of this discussion too, that we are exporting the CX practices and CX methods from United States and United Kingdom, which I found in the last 20 years of my research that a lot of failures happened because of that. So I started this company to design specifically the best practices, as well as how things are going to move in Indian and the nearby countries, and specifically working upon designing the customer relationship and experience strategies in Indian context. So, and I'm finding a very good response in it, and I must congratulate CXPA for this CX Day. We also have an event in the evening today in India, in Delhi. Thank you.
Thank you, Amit. Stephanie, I'd like to give you a little more airtime if you'd like to add more to your introduction, because Leslie got you to speak a little bit ahead of us. So anything else you'd like to add?
Sure, thanks very much. No, I was just, as I said earlier, I work for Microsoft. I'm a customer experience manager here. We have a group worldwide, because we are a global company, that's focused on the customer experience across multiple pillars, if you think about the 6 CXPA pillars. And so I think this is going to be a very good opportunity to talk about. We are a U.S. headquartered company, but we have folks around the world that are trying to drive toward the same mission.
Excellent. So we have the making, I think, of a very exciting conversation. So let me invite Jane, if I may, invite you to address perhaps the first question that you think is relevant for our audience to come to grasp in terms with. What's the biggest lesson that you've learned from any mistakes that you might have made in either undertaking a CX initiative across cultural boundaries? And for those of you who might not have, Amit or Stephanie, perhaps you have, certainly with your global reach, engaged in CX initiatives or participated in an international CX role. Share with us the biggest lesson. What would the audience walk away with based on your experience? Jane, let's start with you.
Thanks, Mohammed. I think for me it was on first arriving in Singapore and recognizing that my regional remit was made up of 9 countries with 9 incredibly different cultures. And we in Australia and New Zealand are often guilty of talking about Asia as if it's one thing. And it's not till you're living in the region and you see and experience the vast array of cultures and different practices that you really begin to realize there's no such sort of homogenous group as Asians as such. I think the biggest mistake I made was relying on an agency based out of the US to supply some photo stock for a significant piece of customer work we did, which was going to be deployed into Japan. And when the brochures and paperwork arrived to send on to the customers, inviting them to this fairly substantial engagement piece that we were doing lots of ethnographic research to find out customer universe and understand how we were going to build out customer persona, all the material for Japan arrived with Korean faces on it and Korean imagery, which was just culturally completely not right. So yeah, just making sure people realize there's no such thing as Asia and that each country has a very unique and different culture. Just as here in Australia and New Zealand, I'm based in New Zealand and the culture difference is quite slight, but there is definitely a difference, and the things you would deploy in Australia wouldn't necessarily work here.
I think we lost the last bit of your interview.
Oh, sorry. Just saying that the things that would work in Australia wouldn't necessarily work in New Zealand, and I think we need to recognise the individualism of culture and country.
too.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that observation, Jane. Stephanie, would you like to pick up as a global corporation and share some thoughts around that question?
My biggest lesson and my biggest mistakes? Sure, always happy to talk about my mistakes. Look, I think the hope is, for me anyway, you never stop learning and trying to take what you have and continue to gain insights. Our company recently launched a new mission statement and a new culture, so it's super exciting times for us. And one of the cultural attributes that we've been trying to launch is customer obsession. So from our CEO on down, he's talking about being customer obsessed. So we're encouraging all of our employees to put customers at the center of everything they do. Sounds great, but how to make that real? So our team worked on trying to create how to bring that culture to life through behaviors that would exemplify customer obsession. And these were behaviors that we wanted every employee. We're 115,000 plus people across the globe. So when we were working to develop these behaviors, I thought I was coming with a pretty inclusive global mindset. I've worked overseas, I've lived overseas, I've traveled to over 60 countries in my career with Microsoft. And so I thought, okay, this is not going to be just a U.S. Activity because that's where we're headquartered. I thought I had a world view. But even with that in mind, I think I still didn't quite have a full appreciation for what it takes to really land things that are designed at headquarters but meant to be executed globally. Just a quick example, our team spent a lot of time on definitions of what these behaviors would be, and we worked through language. And even though we worked with our stakeholders around the world, we quickly found out that words, kind of to Jane's point, some of the words that would work in one culture, empathy was one, didn't resonate in others. So then we said, okay, let's advocate for customers. Let's be advocates. And then we heard, no, that doesn't work either. That means lawyer in my country. We asked people to walk in the customer's shoes, and that didn't always resonate. So the big thing I think I would take away is that if you're going to do this, you need to engage folks across the globe early and often, and don't design a program for global or other cultures, but design it with them, not for them, and allow enough flexibility so that different teams in different cultures can land whatever overarching structure it is that you want to do in their own way that resonates most with their audience and their culture.
Well, thank you for that, Stephanie. Amit, let me give you the license to pick up any thread that you've just heard from both Jane and Stephanie, or start a new thread. We're open to your thoughts.
I'll just take up from Stephanie and Jane, and Mohammed, you have put in me a big trouble because I'm just trying to recollect that which one is the biggest mistake, because so many mistakes are there. So I find every mistake is so big. So I'm confused that which one is the biggest. But I think what I have realized that working with one of the hotel chain in India, we relied on more and more on big data analytics and predictive modeling and more on technological part of it, and just missed the humanitarian approach from one of the strategy, and it did not work out. And so I think that is the biggest mistake. We dependent upon the big data and analytics more rather than designing the things on the humanitarian approach. So it was actually 4 years back, and as I've said, that it was totally exported from United States and United Kingdom, that what is happening there, so it should happen here in India too. So we are actually having a different culture in the sense that we have a power shift is a different manner. So people like to have more personal association and the personal hospitality in the hotels and these everywhere, which is not, I don't find it as Stephanie and Jane told, that I've been traveled to probably 45 countries across in the last 10 years. I find the Asian hospitality is considered as the best one, and when we talk about India, this is considered is the most effective one. So it is the biggest mistake, I think, that even today, if we just rely upon these technologies only, or big data or analytics, because I've heard a lot of people talking about data, and I think data is only, it is you are compiling some of the information into a particular format for creating another information. It's not for your dependency upon it, rather than take some learning from that data and then go ahead. And then now coming to the other areas, as Mohammed said, that I think If we just say, because starting from New Papua Guinea and New Zealand, and then going to the Iceland, it is very much true that the same customer experience or even the same products, if we talk about the products, even the line of products, it does not deliver in the same manner. Because I think there are so many shifts in terms of the beliefs, values people go for, and the same product is packed in a different manner, same product is delivered in a different manner with a different faces altogether. So I think that belief values have more and more importance rather than the use of the product. If you want to get a continuous success across your product line and the company line chain, I would like to have a discussion to be begun upon the value system, which how value system affects upon this area of customer experience, because Microsoft is operating in India with a very high stake. A lot of Indians there in Microsoft. I have gone through various case studies on it, where Microsoft has specifically established some of the part for Indian engineers and Indian software players. So it means the company is concerned about the employees first. So I have two things. One, that what value system, how value system affects the customer experience, and second is that what is the how employee is important in engaging the customer. So it is a very good discussion, Mohammed. I feel we can because it relates to the culture.
Indeed, it does. So here's what I'd like to do. I was going to leave summary and takeaways for the end. So what I'd like to do is summarize what I just heard the three of you share in the form of alerts for our audience. But before I do that, I'm going to come back to each of you and ask you to think about three very specific tips, and not necessarily three, but at least one tip that you can share with the audience that they can walk away with. And while you're processing that, let me see if I can capture the summary thoughts that we've heard as takeaways. So the first thing I think we've heard is challenge your assumptions when you decide to cross boundaries, which means pause and ask the question, do you actually go to and impose? And Stephanie's already alerted us to this very simple lesson. If we go to, let's go to do with, and not rather upon. So I've heard those two threads, and I think they're wonderful takeaways. And then Amit reminds us and reinforces us about the wisdom of localizing, and his reference to localizing comes out of an Indian context, which I've heard him say that relationships are very important. And we know that ultimately that's what we strive for, regardless of cultural boundaries. So that's sort of the threads I've heard in the observations the three of you have shared, as I hope takeaways for the audience to reflect upon. Having said that, let me return to the panelists and ask any one of you to begin to respond to the question. Three very practical, if you have three, one is adequate, practical tips that the audience can put into their toolkit and say, okay, I can walk away and share this with my team. What would they be?
Well, I'm happy to go first. My top three would be, and these are based on having worked across Asia, but also having been based out of London in a global role. Try and obtain, even if they're not in a day-to-day operational role that involves customer experience, try and identify your customer experience evangelists within your local country teams and then activate them as customer experience champions. So I very quickly, very similar to Stephanie, identified on the ground local people who were passionate about customer, who were prepared to advocate and act as a sounding board and rally around, because not all of my country teams had the staff numbers or resources to be able to have dedicated CX people or permanent people, and we used to come together regularly to engage and keep people abreast of the initiatives, and I could temperature check things with them and send them stuff for review. Recognise that there's nothing better than customer referrals in native language, in native culture. So every time we were trying to promote CX across the business internally, we would ensure we had plenty of cross-cultural examples from the global footprint. It wasn't just everything coming out of London or New York. and therefore we were celebrating the successes in country, but recognising those also at regional and at global level. And I think the third thing is don't overlook the collegial use of tools such as Yammer or Slack, because I was running a big project with 25 teams globally. We were doing lots of customer ethnographic research, we were doing lots of customer validation, and just as this call represents people awake and asleep at various times of the day, our teams were the same. So being able to engage resources across the world in that channel meant that people didn't feel they were missing out on email, because we were utilising collegial collaboration tools inside the business that made the world feel a lot smaller, but also enabled us to share materials across those time zones and recognise the value of that collegial conversation.
Excellent. Thank you, Jane. And I will come back to some of the observations in just a moment. Stephanie or Amit, whoever would like to keep going.
Yeah, from I think when we talk about the tips, if I take it from and I start from more on the academic background tips, because that later become the practical one. I think for designing the customer experience in this cultural diverse situation, we need to understand the customer first, very importantly, to create and deliver value. Value by localizing your efforts and localizing your services. Then second is you need to define your success levels, what you want to achieve from your CX efforts. You need to have your success level defined very clearly, and it should be communicated to entire team. Not only the team, rather the entire company or organization must have clarity upon that what you want to achieve from your CX efforts. And third is that creating such a as Jane told, that you need to create a harmony, you need to create such a synchronized system that your employees are empowered, so empowered that they involve themselves maximum in delivering the values to the customers. So these are 3 tips, I think, because it is more academically driven, but it is most practically applicable.
Okay, thank you for that, Amit. I have made a couple of notes, and I think it ties rather nicely into the preceding set of thoughts. Stephanie.
Sure. I'll try to give one in the interest of time, and I'll try not to keep the story too long, but I would say one of the tips is try to take, rather than trying to design something that's homogenous, I mean, we're a big global company and we try to roll out things across the world, but try to take some of the cultural differences and use those as opportunities to help you improve the programs that you have. And I will give one quick example of that. Our team worked extensively with Microsoft in our team in Japan to benefit a specific customer experience program, and this completely changed our thinking about the importance of other cultures, especially on our CX business and just as our business in general. So the Japan team was seen, I think, sometimes as a source of overly detailed, very extreme requests that seemed sort of outside the typical. And sometimes when we felt that we heard this feedback from Japan, it was almost like, this is an edge case, this is an outlier, it's too extreme, we won't take that into consideration when we're designing our programs. So one of the things that we did when we have aging products, typically we announced that we wouldn't support every version of this older product. We had a good goal, but by working with the team in Japan, we really learned a lot. First of all, because of time zone, when we rolled this program out, we didn't think about a couple of things. When we made the announcement, how did we communicate it to our customers wasn't the best. And how did we take escalations? The Japan team helped us because, number one, they got the communications before everybody else. And when they fed those back to us, they were the early bird that said, wow, you need to step this up and fix this a little bit more. Japan enterprise customers read everything. Japan was our canary in the coal mine, so to speak. And we went from thinking that, you know, Japan has this very stringent set of requirements with their culture that makes it hard for us to take their feedback because it's not the typical. We learned that they're kind of the edge case, and if we design for Japan, we can get it right for the world. It was a huge change in our thinking, and we really try to take advantage of that cultural difference.
Well, that's fantastic. Let me see if I've captured those wonderful thoughts in the form of a summary of takeaways that our audience can reflect upon further. Here are some of the observations that surfaced for me as I was listening to you. Beginning with you, Jane, I think you've articulated the urgency and importance of co-opting people on the ground within their cultural context. Leverage those resources, and I think Stephanie just reinforced that with the example of the experience she had with the Japanese culture. So it allows you then to pick up the nuances, while on the one hand we value diversity as an asset that we want to exploit, but we are extremely sensitive to the finer nuances that surface, and the Japanese example of them reading everything is actually a very significant point for people to be sensitive and aware of. And you, of course, Amit, remind us about how significant it is to ensure that we actually challenge our definitions of success. What is successful in India may not be successful across the boundary. So the sensitivity as folks who participate in a global footprint requires an attention to all of these issues that you've all raised. So the native character of what we do is important. And of course, the issue of technology as an instrument or tool, and I would like to actually use the term servant, to help us to establish a collaborative ethic across cultural boundaries. And if we did that well, we could actually design and implement successful CX programs regardless of where we go. Let me pause on that note and do a couple of things. One is, if there are any questions from the audience, we can take a couple. We have a couple of minutes. If not, I'm going to revert back to the panelists for a last thought that they'd like to leave the audience with. So let me just check on the questions. I see none at this stage. So if I see none, and given the time constraints we have, let me go back to each of you for a few seconds. Any last minute gems that you'd like to throw into the court?
I just wanted to make everyone aware that there is actually a global country norm as far as Net Promoter Score is concerned. So when people are giving Net Promoter results in Japan versus Mexico, what is the country norm is something you should always be aware of, especially if you're feeding Net Promoter results up into a European or US HQ, because it's not always benchmarked internationally, so that people will suddenly see a score and assume it's really bad, but for that country, it's actually particularly good. So you need to understand the local norms.
Yeah, Jane, I have colleagues in Germany who tell me the idea of a 10 is non-existent. So
Absolutely, same.
Totally. Stephanie, Amit, any gems you want to throw into the court for us?
This is Stephanie. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Stephanie. Go ahead.
I was just going to say very quickly, Mohammed, you mentioned diversity earlier, and I think that's one thing that we have really embraced a lot at Microsoft when trying to design global CX programs. We've actually been using design thinking or inclusive design, however you want to look at that, to think not just about cultural differences in the sense of geo-specific, but also to look at gender, age, language ability, technical ability, everything else, and we've gotten a lot. So if you haven't done that, I would encourage folks to try to investigate design thinking or inclusive design principles.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Stephanie.
And in addition, Stephanie, because I totally agree with Stephanie and Jen, in addition to whatever Microsoft is doing, I think we have worked out a model where we are working on creating an experience by including some of the cultural parameters or elements which relates to customer experience more, that what is the power distance of level of the country, that how people want to get recognized. It's how it is different in India from United States, because people here in India would like to have pronounced like more like a sir rather than simply like Muhammad. So if you go to hotel or anywhere else in India, if you call, "Hi Muhammad, how are you?" he will feel bad. So it is a very high power distance country. You would like to get recognized as a very valuable person, and you don't want to be treated as equally when you are a customer. And the second one is we need to work out. We are working on. We have developed another element on that. What is the application of that CX strategy, depending upon the individualism and collectivism, how the society behaves, that is the individual important or the group or peer are important. And we are finding in India the group is very important. The experience of group matters a lot when rather than an individual, because the individual get going by the group. If 10 of the persons, they say we want to buy Toyota, the 11th will also say that I'll buy Toyota because my group is buying Toyota. And you will amazed, all of you, that Harley Davidson, everybody knows about the case studies about Harley Davidson and all this, the love for even HD. India is a country where all these premier cars, when we talk about BMW, Audi, Harley Davidson, Mercedes, Jaguar, the largest selling country for these expensive cars and bikes is India. BMW came here in India with a target of selling 1,000 units, but the experience of peer or experience of group delivered them such a huge business that they spent more than 100,000 units in a year, and it was unexpected. They could not meet the demand existed in India, and the CEO said that we never thought that how the group will behave. So the group is having very important impact on the customer, generating customer experience. And then we have developed the third one is the masculinity and femininity, that what is the impact of that on the customer experience when we talk about the culture. So these three elements we have added in our model of designing the customer experience and designing the customer experience in terms of culture. And I think it is going to deliver and on creating more and more information for us when we include these three elements also while studying the customers.
Well, Ami, thank you for introducing us to Hofstede's schema, but I won't hold it against you that you didn't address me as sir and call me by my first name.
I'm sorry.
Well, I see that we have no questions. We have run out of time. I first of all want to thank the audience for participating in this global conversation that kicks off our celebration of CX Day. For many of you, it's already there. For us in the United States, we're anticipating the arrival of October 5th in a few hours. Thank you very much to the panelists for your participation. I think the thoughts that you shared with us are indeed fabulous, and I know that participants today will walk away with something that they can think about. If that's all we've done well. Thank you all very much. Leslie, back into your court.
Mohammed, thank you so much for moderating this fantastic panel. Stephanie, thank you. Jane, thank you. Amit, thank you very much for being part of this on Customer Experience Day. I'd like to thank all of you who tuned in today, and for those of you who submitted comments to us and tweeted alongside us. Please keep up that energy and enthusiasm throughout your day today. We'll be following you on Twitter and all of our other social media sites. I encourage you to use hashtag CXDay. In just over 13 hours, we will have another one of these panels coming to you from London. That panel will be addressing the topic of customer experience beyond optimization towards reinvent. So I encourage you to tune in just over 13 hours from now as we hear from our CXPA members in London. Thank you again so much to our panelists, to our fabulous moderator, Mohammed, and go forth. Let's celebrate a great Customer Experience Day. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.